In 1823, President Monroe proclaimed what was modestly called the Monroe Doctrine. Its aim was to protect Latin America from the Europeans, regardless of whether the people of Latin America wanted to be protected. This paternalism later became known as America's manifest destiny, that is, America's God-given right to control its own hemisphere. 1898, President McKinley orders U.S. troops to invade Cuba. 1905, President Theodore Roosevelt orders the invasion of Honduras. 1912, President Taft orders the invasion of Nicaragua. 1914 to 18, President Wilson invades Haiti, Cuba, and Panama. 1924 to 26, President Coolidge invades Nicaragua and Honduras. 1954, Eisenhower approves the overthrow of the elected government of Guatemala. 1961, Kennedy approves a CIA invasion of Cuba. 1965, Johnson invades the Dominican Republic. 1973, Nixon approves the overthrow of the elected government of Chile. 1981, President Reagan approves the CIA secret war against Nicaragua. 1983, President Reagan orders the invasion of Grenada. Nixon had said of Somoza, "Now that's the kind of anti-communist we like to see down there." When the earthquake struck, the return on this investment was beyond Somoza's wildest dreams. The United States gave him emergency aid of $57 million, most of it out of U.S. government funds. But the Nicaraguan Treasury reported receiving only $16 million. There was no inquiry about the missing $41 million. Indeed, more of the same just kept rolling in. With the support of the Carter administration, the International Monetary Fund gave Somoza $65 million, just a few months before he fled the country and while he was bombing his own people.
The earthquake in 1972, and Somoza didn't repair it, okay? The financial resources. The Sandinista government nationalized 19 different banks, and we found only $3.5 million in the 19 banks. That means 1 day of imports for this country. On the other hand, we inherited an external debt of $1.6 billion. And probably half, $800 million, never were used in this country. Were parked in Miami or Switzerland. However, we are now servicing this debt.
The first Somoza began his career as a sewerage inspector and went on to own the sewers of Nicaragua, right up to the manhole covers. This is the remains of another Somoza interest after the Sandinistas had got through with it, a notorious blood factory known as the House of Dracula, to which poor Nicaraguans would sell their blood for as little as $1 a litre in order to buy food. The blood would then be sold to the United States for 10 times that amount. The year was 1978, 1 year before the uprising. This was Somoza's National Guard, or Death Squad. Funded as part of America's foreign aid program, they were the instrument of American policy in Nicaragua for almost half a century. Now reorganized in Honduras and paid by the CIA, they are described by President Reagan as freedom fighters.
A whole range of crimes were committed here. For example, there were National Guards who not only killed Nicaraguans, but also tortured them. There were cases where people's skin was scraped off with shaving knives, alive. Others where their eyes were gouged out with spoons. Others were castrated. There was a range of cruelty here which I don't think would fit into an encyclopedia.
Yes, I have an opinion about this aggression. Let President Reagan spare a thought that he has children. Let him think that he is supporting genocide. They were murderers here. They had no pity for the young people. It was a crime in Nicaragua to be young.
Since the Sandinistas came to power, they have let go 2,500 National Guardsmen, and many of them went straight to Honduras, where they were signed up and armed by the CIA. President Reagan has said, "We do not seek to overthrow the government of Nicaragua." This week, November the 15th, 1983, more than 4,000 American combat troops will have arrived in Honduras for what are called maneuvers close to the border with Nicaragua. American troops, says President Reagan, will strike back if they are attacked. President Kennedy gave the same assurance 20 years ago, shortly before the beginning of America's longest war.
Why do you think that President Reagan accuses you people of being communists?
All that is communism for Reagan because the role that Christianity plays in the cultural framework of Reagan is to legitimize established powers of the world. The church has been always with the big capital, with the big institutions, with big countries. Only in exceptions, the church worked with the poor, with the underdeveloped, with the third world countries. Now, if the church starts legitimizing the poor, the independence of these small countries, the church is delegitimizing the established powers, then the church is a subversive element. And that's why they identify subversion of an order that is oppressed for the majority of our people with communism. And Monsignor Romero, the Archbishop in El Salvador, was a subversive and a communist.
And he was shot.
Was shot.
If Archbishop Romero's support for ordinary people made him a communist, then these 3 American nuns and a religious lay worker were also communists. Indeed, Jean Kirkpatrick, America's representative at the UN, suggested that the nuns were communist sympathizers. They were raped and murdered by members of the National Guard of El Salvador, a country where 35,000 people have been the victims of death squads since 1980. The American ambassador at the time was Robert White. He said, "The chief killers here are the government security forces. They are the ones responsible for the deaths of thousands upon thousands of young people who have been executed merely on the suspicion that they are leftists. Are we really going to be part of all that?" For saying that, the ambassador was sacked. This year, the Reagan administration wants to give to the El Salvador regime more than $200 million in aid. By contrast, there are no death squads in Nicaragua, where all American aid has been stopped.
They consider that this is democratic, that this is Christian, and this is part of the Western civilization. That all what we are doing is totalitarian, anti-Christian, and communist. The only thing of changing the mentality of the U.S. administration is in the hands of the North American people. No other force in the world will transform this mentality. We are unable to do that.
They've been called the gang that couldn't shoot straight. The old gang who gave America Vietnam are back, building new careers with a new war in Central America. John Negroponte, American ambassador to Honduras, runs the CIA's secret war. Negroponte helped to run the Vietnam War as a political officer in Saigon and under Henry Kissinger in Washington. Robert Comer, otherwise known as Blowtorch Bob, is a former CIA expert on pacification, meaning terror. Blowtorch Bob failed to pacify Vietnam, but now works for the Pentagon, advising on how to pacify Nicaragua. Nestor Sanchez, 28 years in the CIA, helped to mount the abortive invasion of Cuba in 1961. He is now a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense.
How does a small country in Central America radically alter the cycle of poverty that has been a feature of life down there for so long without being seen in the United States as a challenge or even a threat?
I believe that kind of a challenge we accept. We want to help these countries redress the years of poverty that they've lived in. But we certainly don't see the solution in letting them become a country under communist domination and rule.